today we're going to be talking about an incident response and risk management. So it's a good talk. It's going to be fun. If it goes as good as the dry run did earlier today, you guys are really going to enjoy this and look forward to seeing that come together. So I'm just waiting to see James stick his head around the corner and tell me that we're good to go, and we will get started.
We'll do it.
So, Romeo, welcome to Visualizations, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man.
Man, I'm glad you could come. You got a lot of really good information that we shared, and we got a great partnership together.
Yes, sir.
That we're working through, so I'm looking forward to.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, so I guess now it's time to start. Sounds like we're ready to go. So,
Great.
Hey everybody, welcome to our webinar today, Effective Incident Response and Risk Management. We're going to make it a lot more fun than the title sounds, I promise, when we get done with this. So if you're joining us on Facebook Live, hey, what's up? How are you guys doing? Glad to have you guys here today. The YouTube channel is going to be up. We appreciate you guys doing. Like this, share it with all of your friends out there so that everybody can see how cool Romeo is, because if they're looking at me, they know that it's not going to be that way. Anyway, we appreciate you joining us today to talk about this. This is a pretty big deal that we're talking about. We're going to just do some quick introductions here. Again, my friend Romeo here is with MyMed.
Yes.
And you're a security organization and a compliance organization and a whole bunch of everything. So tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah. Again, I'm Romeo. I've been in the healthcare industry for about 14, 16 years, and I kind of did an exile and worked in the oil and gas industry as well. I did some project management, software deployment on the safety side, so I've been exposed to a lot of safety securities regulations. I was under the HES, which is the Health Environmental Services, and I worked with this small company, oil company called Chevron. So
Little guys.
yeah, little guys, yeah. So, but it was fun. I did a lot of support and deployment. So it's cool.
Your folder.
Well, that's not any fun. All right, so anyway, continue on. While we're doing that, we're going to do a little technical work over here on this side. Pay no attention to me, what's going on. So anyway,
So it was
you work
great.
for Chevron.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, switching over to going back to my first passion, which is on the healthcare industry. Everything I learned from the oil and gas, moving on to the healthcare, it was a pretty swift and an easy move for me. It's not even any adjustment at all, because I'm just going back to what I've been doing for a long time. And yeah, we handle physicians, big facilities. We do audits. We do risk analysis. We do cybersecurity, which is a pretty big topic that we're going to be discussing today. We have cool tools that you can use as well, affordable ones. Yeah. So yes, we're looking forward to this discussion with you guys.
All right, almost there. I am sending the files to Mr. Katz so that he can put this stuff out. Sorry. So he can put this stuff out on the web and everybody can have access to it.
Bear with us.
In the process of that, we're going to be talking about the discussion of effective incident response plan. And so part of the conversation that we're going to have today is we're going to be talking about what an IR plan is,
Correct.
an incident response plan,
Mm-hmm.
often called an IR plan.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about that, of what constitutes an incident response plan.
Well, basically, it's an organizational approach when we talk about IR. Okay, you can build an IR easily, but how to create an effective incident response plan? That's what we're going to be discussing today. It's a policies and procedures that you put in place, so when something happens, an incident like cyber breach, your staff, your organization knows how to handle it. People, key stakeholders, knows their responsibilities and things like that. So it's great.
All right, cool. So, all right, now we're back in now. We can actually have the conversation because everybody, I think, has their stuff that they need. So, the effective incident response plan and risk assessment. We talked a little bit about what an IR plan is. So, but the reality is that we've got to break down a little bit of what the parameters of this thing are.
Correct.
So it's Friday afternoon. It's a holiday weekend. I'm excited because I've got my family ready to go.
Uh-huh.
We've got the RV packed up. I'm ready to go out on the weekend and do the thing that I love to do almost more than anything else, and that's to put my backside in the cold waters of the Comal River here in Texas,
yes.
in central Texas. You know, maybe crack open a frosty adult beverage and just enjoy my time relaxing over the weekend. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody's talking about all their plans for the day, and all of a sudden, we get the dreaded call from Janet in accounting. Now, I have to throw out a caveat here. We really don't have a Janet in accounting. A Janet in accounting is we have a policy that says no Janets in accounting can ever be there. It's not an equal opportunity thing, but that's who we use. So if we ever hire a Janet, we're going to have to use a different name.
Different name, correct.
So just throwing that out there. We don't have anything against Janets. We just have Janet in accounting, who is a figment of our imagination. So anyway, poor Janet calls us up, and she says, hey, there's something on my screen that I need you to come and look at.
Yeah, you have that deep sigh. It's like
The deep sigh, because we know exactly what that means. That
Correct.
means that we're going to show up down on our screen, and we know that we need to affect our incident response plan immediately. But the problem is what is that going to look like for us? Do we even have an incident response plan? You know, we can use, like my kids, you know, throughout, do you even incident response, bro? You know, how are we going to respond to this? Who's going to do what? How is it going to happen? Are we just going to send the guy down there and let him just delete the thing and just move on? Or is there more stuff to it than that?
Yes, and that's what we're going to be discussing this afternoon is what are those processes, what are those procedures that needs to be included on when you're building your incident response or effective incident response plan.
Right, because there's definitely a difference between an incident responce and an effective incident response plan. Perfect. Well, let's get into this thing a little bit. So talk to me about this, and there's a couple things on here that I really like, but go ahead and start talking to me. What is an incident response plan?
Yeah, it's actually when some incident happens, like a breach, you know, that is the procedure that you're going to put in place organization-wise,
Right.
okay? So it's a structured policies and procedures. And the goal actually is to handle it and to limit the damage that caused by that breach.
Sure.
So,
But it's an organized.
it's an organized, yes. We
Approach.
emphasize on the organized, yeah. It's
Yeah.
not like, okay, I pull this out from the shelf and this is what I'm gonna be doing. No, it's a full it's a thought process that you put in place.
Sure. And it's going to involve a lot of people. It's going to
Correct.
involve not only just the IT department and the victim,
Correct.
if you will, of the person that, you know, was actually, you know, the product of this attack, but it's going to involve management.
Yes.
It's going to involve compliance teams.
Yeah, your
Possibly HR,
yes.
possibly legal
Legal
teams.
team.
It can involve your entire organization. So there's got to be an organization, and the purpose of that organization is to provide us with structure
Correct.
so that we know what to do. Because again, like you said here, the goal is to handle the situation in a way that limits the damage.
Correct. And basically all the stakeholders, which is everybody.
Sure. All right, so good. So a lot of stuff up on here on this. So I guess let's break this thing down, because you know, I can tell that you worked in oil and gas because there's flow charts. and if I see flow charts, I recognize and know real quick that we're dealing with oil and gas. We're dealing with bankers or oil and gas. They're flow charts, but they're good because they help us be able to keep things, again, organized.
And we
that's
break it
what's
down.
important.
That's a new
Right.
thing about it.
So-
we break down the process.
The biggest thing is with an incident response plan is that you need to know what your response is going to be.
Correct.
Before the event.
Correct.
And not when the event is actually happening. You can't make this stuff up on
Yes.
the fly, or you're going to make really costly mistakes. So let's
That's
start here
right.
up in this thing. Your first thing up here is responsibilities and approvals. Let's talk about what does that mean?
I'll go back to your example a while ago. When Janet called, you know, something happens, I see something on my PC, can you come down and look at it? Now, a regular IT person, he needs to know what his responsibilities and the action needs to be taken when an incident happened like that. Is he gonna go in there and take out the hard drive, wipe it off? Is he gonna close the ports to mitigate the attacks? Those are the things that they need to know in hand before an actual event happens. It's not only the response, but also we also need to take the considerations about the timing of it. We cannot go to management and say, hey, can you approve this one because I need to pull the hard drive, you know, because that's gonna be counterproductive.
Sure.
So everybody needs to know the policies and the action that needs to take place when that kind of incident happens.
Right, exactly, because we know and we understand that every moment that it goes on beyond the initial incidents, it can do more and more and more and more damage.
Correct.
And so identifying that and responding quickly in a very organized manner helps us to mitigate the damage, the
Correct.
cost, and the time of actually being able to get back to production, which is ultimately everybody's goal.
Yes.
So what about the legal and the contractual obligations?
Yeah, those are big. That also needs to be in your IR plan too.
Yeah.
You know, because you're not only protecting, you know, it's not only the cost associated with the breach, it's also your legal responsibilities. So your legal team is also to be included in that planning.
Right.
And of course, your it's the company's reputation is at stake.
Absolutely.
So that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest one.
Absolutely. The reputation of your company and your public perception.
Correct.
Is such a big deal. And it's a shame because we live in such a litigious society.
Yes.
That ultimately it's the victim that's getting punished for this in so many cases. But, you know, as we'll talk about in a little while, everybody is a target of this. And it's not just a matter of, you know, if, but when.
But when. It's Gartner actually releases a study saying that 92% of breaches happen and the breached company doesn't even know about it
Oh my
for months or days or even years.
gosh. Yeah.
That's starting number. That's
Yeah,
a big
it's
percentage.
That's a startling number.
It's
How much-
92%. It's big.
How much information has been exfiltrated, how much information is out there that we don't even necessarily know about?
Correct.
Because we just simply don't have processes in place that help us to be able to identify those and understand what it is that we need to do. It's scary, but I don't know how many calls that we've gotten in our office that, you know, somebody says, hey, you know, I've got this message that's been acting on my computer's acting really slow, I've got these messages that are popping up all the time. Okay, well, when did this start happening? Oh, about 6 months ago.
Yes.
Giant sigh, count to 10, you know, if you've got Daniel Tiger, you understand the song that I'm singing right now
Correct.
inside of my head. But, you know, there's so many things that have to happen, and there's so many things that need to take place, but ultimately it comes down to balance. You
That's
know,
correct.
we need to let people know,
Productivity and-
we need to
yes.
get the responses to management and the people that need to know in place, but doggone it, sometimes we just need to fix the issue.
That's
We need
correct.
to take care of it, get that thing unplugged, and get it offline so that we can get the company back productive again. So talk about, you know, a balance a little bit. What does that look like?
Well, that's what I'm saying a while ago. We need to arm our personnel the proper policies and procedures so that when something like that happens, it's not like they're gonna hinder the process, but be more effective on battling those incidents. Again, you know, instead of going to management and have them approve some things that need to be done, on the policies that you have, you already have those step procedures in place.
Absolutely. And so, as a segue into the next one here, it's not just the IT department's responsibility to maintain the incident response plan.
Correct.
Dude, it's everybody in the entire organization is
All-
responsible for this.
Everybody's a stakeholder, yes.
And it all starts with training.
Correct.
So how do we incorporate training? Because that sounds like a daunting task. How do I train my people in the company? How do I even begin to start a training program? In schools, we do fire drills.
Correct.
And everybody knows exactly what to do. And so in the event that there actually is an emergency, everybody does it.
Correct.
But how do we implement drills into our workspaces?
See, that's the same thing. It's a little bit, it's the same thing like drills in the school and things like that. Once you're done producing or creating your incident response plan, don't put it on the shelf. You know?
Right.
You need to practice it.
Yeah.
Okay, if something happens, what are you gonna do? So you are prepared when the actual breach happened. Train your staff. We have a tool that we use, which is Cyber Compass. It has a built-in tool to train your staff for HIPAA compliance, security officers as well. So those are the tools that you can use, you know, to train your staff.
Right.
It's just an awareness campaign. It's a never-ending, you know, awareness campaign that we do.
And it's something you just have to do over and over
Correct.
and over
And-
until it becomes second nature.
Correct, and just for us, you know, January 1st, we always do our conference. We always do our compliance and things and training for all the staff. That's the number one. That's the main priority for the company.
Right.
So come January, we train everyone, and that's not only one time. It's actually you know,
Yeah.
evolving process. Too.
So training, you know, when we mention training, to a lot of our client base and to a lot of our customers, you know, immediately everybody cringes because nobody has time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, time is one of the greatest commodities. So one of the benefits that we understand about the CyberCompass
Mm-hmm.
product is it's web-based.
Correct.
And so talk to me a little bit about how that process works, because it's a lot easier than it sounds.
Correct.
To me.
The good thing with this application, CyberCompass training, is that it breaks down the subjects. So you have like 4 modules that you can use, and then for about an hour, and then it also will give you tests on every end of the module, and you can also print your certificate afterwards. It's not like, okay, I completed my security certification, or my compliance, my HIPAA compliance certification, but also you need to prove that. You need to give that to your compliance officer for
Sure.
reporting as
Sure.
well. So it's a pretty neat tool.
Right, now I need to shut down my entire office for a whole day and dedicate an entire day of my staff to be able to do this, right?
No, you don't have to. They can do it then on their time, even if they go home and
Right.
lunch break,
Sure.
things like that. So yeah.
So we really are
anytime.
talking about a self-guided process
Correct.
that takes an hour, maybe an hour and a
To
half
take
or
the
something like
training,
that, a
yeah.
couple hours to be able to go through all of the things.
Yes.
Self-guided, they answer the questions, and at the end of the day, it defines a risk assessment. And there's training and the documentation.
Correct.
And all of those things will be available, and then you can go in and see who's actually done it and who hasn't.
Correct.
All
Yeah,
of it.
you will have this audit log, and then again, they can print their certificate that they completed that training.
Perfect.
Yes.
Like every compliance officer, I want you out there to look at me right now. You're gonna like this. It's gonna save you time.
It's
gonna
awesome.
help you a lot.
It's awesome.
So, all right. So we're gonna go through here, and it's gonna provide us with, analysis and analytics and data that we'll talk about a little bit later on.
Correct. It's just a built-in dashboard that you can see high points and key points when you do your risk assessment. It's not just a questionnaires actually.
Sure.
It's a whole package that you can use. You also have policies and procedures. If you want to compile your business associate, there's also a platform for that one, also built into
Right.
the tool. It's just amazing.
So it's got the forms built into it. You just fill in
You
some
have
basic
templates.
information. and
You
it's
have
done.
templates, and it's all customizable. If you don't have a policies and procedures in place, man, this one has a pretty awesome.
So if I had a
PSC.
startup healthcare center that was coming in that had no policies and procedures in place, I can create my entire document, my entire policies and procedures manual, all my HIPAA training,
You do your
compliance,
risk assessment.
and everything, one-stop shopping, and be able to just
Correct.
put it in place.
And if you want to also move beyond that, we also do network penetration testings as well,
Sure.
which is awesome. Vulnerability tests, asset discovery as well.
Right.
Because we're also going to discuss that later on about
Yeah.
asset inventory.
So, incident response planning. So we understand that we've got an approval process that we need to do. We understand that we need to let other people know.
Correct.
We understand that there needs to be regular training and stuff happening. So now we come up to the moment that there is actually an incident. We need to respond to this
Mhm.
thing. What is the appropriate communication? What's the amount of time that we should be spending on this? What does that look like?
Yeah, so on the communication is you need to know the people involved and who's going to be involved in that kind of incident. Does it need to go to communication? Does it need to go to the upper management? Or does it need to go to the legal team? Does it need to go to your public relations team or to your IT team? So you need to have that one, everything scoped out and planned out, so when something happens like this, you know how to communicate. Those kind of incidents.
Which absolutely highlights exactly what we were talking about when we said that the incident response plan is an organized effort.
Correct.
Everybody in the entire team needs to understand exactly what their part is, what they're supposed to do,
Mhm.
why they're supposed to do it, and most importantly, when they're supposed to
Correct.
do it. And if you have all of these things in place and you've got a well-executed and a well-practiced
Mhm.
assessment where everybody understands the process that they go through and people just execute it as a second nature response, you're going to find that your cost goes down, your time to mitigate
Correct.
goes down, the value goes up,
Mhm.
and ultimately your exposure becomes much, much less.
Correct.
Much, much
That's
less.
very
We don't
good,
want to
yes.
be Yahoo and have continue back out there again. All right, so we've got this incident response plan. We understand the critical roles of all the people that we need to
Mhm.
contact, who, when, why, how. All the different places are in place. In our organization, we use a go bag. We have a bag together that's got a sheet inside that's got all the contact information for each of the clients that we service as an MSP,
Okay.
so that we can pull that information out and we can say, okay, this is the people that I need to contact immediately, all the stakeholders,
Right.
all the things that need to be done, and it's got, it's just a bag of tricks. I mean, it's got all the different things that a tech would need, so he just grabs the bag and he's immediately ready to roll and everything we need to do. And these are easy to do. It's not stuff that's hard, costly, or anything else. It's just so you're ready to go. So when the moment of the emotion and the
Yes.
high of, oh my goodness, I've got an event happens, you're ready,
You know
and
it,
you've got to
grab
plan.
it, and
It's just
you're good
step
to
by
go.
step by step. So
Correct.
this next one is so important, man.
And-
talk to me about the
Yeah, and this is what we
crowd
talked about asset discovery a while ago. Most cyber hackers nowadays probably know more about your network than you do.
right?
You know, it's a sad thing, but so for you as an organization, you need to know. You need to know where your asset is. You know, that's why we put there your crown jewel. Is that your
Right.
database? Is that this
Right.
big storage files that you have? You know, things like that.
For us in healthcare, where's your PHI?
Correct.
Where is that
Where is that stored?
critical
Yeah.
PHI? Where is it stored? What is your risk? What are your exposures that you have in that?
And there's a big misconception about, oh, we use the cloud nowadays for service, so everything is secure, everything is good. Why do we need this?
Well, if you use Visualutions, it is.
That's right. Yeah. But the thing is, you know, if come to think of it, you download files from your cloud, from your storage, and it cached into your PC, and you know it resides there without you knowing it. So
Right.
those are the things. It's not only vertical but also horizontal. What we call horizontal. So you grab your laptop, you go out, you go to Starbucks, you sit down there, and then all of a sudden you got compromised. You go back to the office, and all of a sudden there's a breach.
And we see so many times, you know, we go back to like, the biggest, anybody, if you're in healthcare at all, you understand Erie County Medical in New York. If you don't, you need to read up on that, because it is a case study of what to do right and what to not do right, or what to not do, all at the same time. You need to really look at it, because there's so many things. It was strategic. I'm gonna be real Southern here for a second. This was strategic, y'all. These guys knew exactly what they were doing when they got in, and they found a loophole in a public-facing RDP server. They got into a report. They found a very easily breachable username and a
User account,
password. Password 1 was really what they used, and they were able to get in on an RDP server and basically just spend the next week snooping around on the network and finding out what they could see. And then out of the process of all of that, they slowly started to download the files that they needed, the executables, and all of the scripting that they needed to be able to do. And then at a moment of weakness, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, they popped them, and all of a sudden people all over the hospital started having, just in a 1,000-seat hospital, started having pop-up messages all over their stuff. They had been compromised, not at the moment that they started seeing the screen come up, but week before.
A long time. Yeah, you call that zero-day attack, basically.
That's a zero-day attack.
They plan that seed out there, and when the time is right, they pull the trigger. Yeah.
So oftentimes we see, and if we look at the pictures of a cyber jerk, as I'm going to call him today, out on the web, if you go and Google a picture of what of a cyber criminal looks like, you're going to see the guy in the dark room and the hoodie up over his head.
That's right.
The iPhone, the headphone
The
things in
headphones
his
and,
ear,
clicking away,
with the digits all on the screen. You've seen exactly what I'm talking about. You've got the imagery in your head of exactly what it is, and that's exactly not what it is.
Correct.
The bottom line is that these guys, these cyber criminals, they look just like me and you. They're going into an office, a high-rise office, in a suit and tie, and they're sitting in a cubicle, and they're talking about what they're going to do this weekend with their friends. They've got benefits. They've got all of these things like that. These are professionals that
That's
are
true.
at the top of their game and are making way more money than I'm making, I promise. And they have a single job to do, and that's to infiltrate your network.
Correct.
So that they can find out what it is that they can get out, because each piece of data is worth thousands of dollars.
Absolutely right.
Thousands of dollars. So ultimately, we've got to understand, in order to be able to mitigate all of those things and be able to bring it in, we need a circle, we need a loop that's going to bring all of the information,
Ties everything together.
Because it's not a linear process.
Mhm.
It's not, okay, I've been notified, I need to go and mitigate it, and then I need to find out how it happened, and then put the things back in service and everybody go about their business.
Correct.
No, things loop back. You have to continually go back over and over.
It's an evolving document,
Yes.
just like what we have in the slide that we have. So you observe, you orient, you decide, and then you act. And then basically after the incident, you need to do a lessons learned.
Yes.
Collect all the information that you've learned from that incident, you document it, you notify the proper authorities, your management team, your legal team, your public relations team,
Right.
and have all of those into your documentations, so that when that incident happens again later on, you know what to do.
Right.
You cleared everything out. So.
Man, I gotta be honest with you, Romain. Sometimes, man, this stuff seems really complicated.
Yeah.
And we understand that, we do this for a living every day. We eat, breathe,
Uh-huh.
we don't sleep, but we eat and breathe this stuff every day of our lives. 7 days a week when I'm off sitting on the river, I'm thinking about what the next cybersecurity is. When I'm reading my iPhone in the morning, I'm looking at the latest breaches and the latest attack
Mhm.
vectors and trying to find out the best way to be able to securitize my people, because we're a security postured company, just like you guys are. But we understand that from our perspective, we are an IT provider. My goal for my customer base is that they be productive and that they have a transitional, that their EMR and their PHI data is protected, but that their EMR is working, and that the doctors, when they log into the stinking computer, are able to get onto the
Correct.
computer. That's my goal. Your goal is entirely different than mine,
Yes.
because you have a security first posture, which says that I will sacrifice productivity for the security of the whole thing. And sometimes we kind of tend to work against each other a little bit. But the reality of it is that when we are working together in harmony,
Mhm.
when you've got a security person that's looking out for your backside, and you've got the IT people that are looking out for your front side,
Mhm.
you have a great strategy
Correct.
moving forward, because both of us are working towards the same goals
Same goal.
to
That's
move the
absolutely
company
right.
forward.
That's absolutely right.
But, so how important is it to have, in today's environment, to have a security officer involved in your organization?
Well, a small mom and pop and shop, organizations probably want to be able to afford a full-time
Sure.
security,
Sure.
But we provide that service as well. So
Right.
you can contract somebody just to make sure that everything is running smoothly, compliant,
Sure.
and on your network, everything is being patched, everything is good. You have your policies and procedures. You have your DR, your disaster recovery plan in place.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's very important.
Sure.
I will say.
So, we recognize now that, obviously as an MSP, we are a managed service provider,
Mhm.
and we provide services to companies that don't necessarily have the space or the budget or
Correct.
whatever to be able to have a full-time IT staff, or even a need necessarily. And so many things now, as you know, are hosted to where, they're not on site. So the need to have, a local IT team is not necessarily as great as it's
Correct.
been in the past. You still
Yes.
need some
You need-
technical
yes.
experts on site, but you don't necessarily have to have a full-blown IT
Full.
department on site. Now we exist in a society and in a place, in 2018, that we have security experts, chief
Mhm.
security officers as a service. We have chief technical officers,
Mhm.
yourself, as a service. Things that can come in and that can provide consulting, which is what I do,
Mhm.
and be able to provide consulting, and be able to provide direction and guidance
Correct.
to a small customer, and then allow them to be able to take that information and leverage the information that they have, but they don't have to be the experts themselves. They can use experts.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely right.
So, beyond that, we understand now that we've got all of these things in place. So, there's a difference between a risk assessment and risk management.
Yeah, the risk assessment always comes up, every time we discuss, all of this topic. Maybe a disaster recovery, maybe our incident response plan. That's where you start. That's where you start, is your risk management. You need to know what are your risks before you can even plan, So again, the tool that we're using, which is Compass, the Cyber Compass, also has capabilities to do that risk assessment of your network, of your security, of your policies, and everything that you will need. So,
Right.
and then after the risk assessment, you need to manage that risk.
Mhm.
You need to mitigate that risk.
Absolutely. And so it's an ongoing,
It's an ongoing
it's an
process.
ongoing strategy, it's an
Correct.
ongoing process. All of those things are there. So ultimately, man, what does a risk assessment really do for me in my company?
Very good question. The risk assessment is, again, is trying to get all the risks, known risks that you can find in your organization and try to mitigate them. So in that way, you're going to be prepared. If you have any weaknesses on your network or in your policies, you need to mitigate those because those are vulnerabilities that cybersecurity or cyber hackers will attack you.
Sure.
So if you have
Sure.
that one in place, it's going to be a very good tool for you.
Man, there's some scary looking stuff up here.
Yeah, we're talking about those kids in their basement on the hoodies and listening on their iPads and things like that. That's about decades ago. Now it's
Sure.
flipped. We're talking about organized crime now. It's up 80%. They even have call centers.
Right?
It's crazy. They
Because somebody needs to be available to take your bitcoins 24
correct.
hours a day, 7
Bitcoins, they
days a
do
week.
money laundering as well.
Uh-huh.
It is crazy. And the thing is, they're very highly sophisticated.
Sure they are.
Keeps on evolving. And now it's a war between the good guys and the bad guys.
And we see consolidations that are happening, Romeo, because not only, I ran an MSP,
Mhm.
personally for about 10 years in the Houston area where we provided services, we provided IT services. But as this sector has begun to come up, I realized that I was understaffed to be able to handle
Correct.
so much of these things. And so what you start to see now is even some of the smaller MSPs start to join larger MSPs so that we can get the value of our expertise that we bring to the table to be able to do things. So again,
Correct.
same thing with the small organizations. You may have a great IT team, but you still need to reach out to people outside of your immediate umbrella because there's just a level of expertise that your people in an isolated box don't possess the ability to keep up with on a daily basis because it's constantly
Evolving. You're absolutely
Exactly.
right. I mean, they're very evasive. They orchestrated. Careful orchestrated, and then infinite resources. They have tons of
Right.
money. They have tons of resources they can spend.
Right.
It's just crazy.
It's an amazing thing what they need, what they're able to do, and what they're able to accomplish. And again, going back to that entire process with Erie County, take a look at that in your free time and just look at all of the things that they did on it, and it'll make a believer out of you of why you want to be prepared up front.
Absolutely.
Because nobody needs to be down for 44 days.
And again, it's not a matter of if. It's just a matter of when.
And this is the problem.
Oh yeah. I got this one and I pulled it up and it's really surprising. Cybercrime right now it's on the rise. By 2019, it's projected to be a $2.1 trillion business. Comparing it to Canada's GDP, it's about 1.56 trillion. So
Crazy.
so now you can actually kind of visualize it on the cost of it, on
Sure.
business-wise. How big is the cybercrime is nowadays?
Goodness. 4 billion records stolen in 2016 alone.
Correct.
If we qualify that and we go back and we look at, each one of those records could be worth $1,500 a piece. That $2.1 trillion
Yes.
sounds conservative.
Correct.
It could significantly be more than that. And even some of our smaller community health centers that we service have hundreds of thousands of records individually
Mhm.
themselves. So the exposure to this is just, it's more than my mind can comprehend.
Correct.
Even as a mathematician guy, it's hard for me to really wrap my head around what a trillion is.
Correct.
It's hard for me to wrap my head sometimes around what $100 is, let alone a trillion. It's a big deal. And it's something that we can't just sit back and wait to respond post-mortem. We
Mhm.
have to have a plan
Correct.
in place.
And also the generation nowadays, they're so fortunate that a lot of technology is evolving, and just Internet of Things, your BYOD, you bring your own devices on work and things like. But that also poses a lot of threats to the organization.
Sure.
So, and that's what we're seeing here.
Okay, so risk assessment. Risk assessment does more than just come into your organization and say, hey, these are your loopholes and these are the things that are wrong with you. Without good data,
Correct.
you really can't make good decisions.
Correct.
On the other end of it. So talk to me a little bit about, quantitative and qualitative. These are words that I understand, but come on, man, I'm just a guy from Channelview, man. I mean, I just, these are not words that I use on a regular basis. Matter of fact, it took me about 5 times to practice to even say the words.
Just even saying it.
I understand what they mean, but explain what quantitative and qualitative analysis means for me.
On a layman's term, on a
Yeah.
nutshell, yeah. So quantitative risk analysis is basically your cost. So you can formulate and you can get the actual cost that you can go to your boss, to management, and say, okay, this is the cost for us. A good example is if the company or organization is going to buy antivirus,
Sure.
let's say for example. How much is that going to cost us to buy that? And how much is it going to cost if we don't buy it? What is at stake? How often? What is the percentage if we get attacked? Is that going to be monthly, once a month, twice a year, 4 times? Every day, basically. So now you have all of those data that you gather, and then you put that and you calculate that and come up with a baseline cost.
Right.
So now management can now, it's not like you're just going to management, hey, we need this. Why? So now you have a cost in hand to give it to them, and they can decide.
So exactly. So for years we've had qualitative analysis where we've gone in, you go in, and you guys know what I'm talking about. As a manager, or as a department lead, or even just as a tech that's working, in our field, we would go to the executive team, we would go to the leadership team, and we would sit down with them and say, look, we really think that we need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
The keywords there are, we really think we should do this. And then they say, okay, well, make me a case for that.
Correct.
And so you go in and you provide them a case for what it needs to be. But the case is generally, well, it's been found to be pretty effective in this and this and this and this and this. The case, however, isn't really a case until you put the quantitative analysis along
Correct.
with it. Because when you quantify the amount of costs that are associated with it, down to the very unit level, I can then say, listen, if I have a breach in my system and I don't do this,
Mm-hmm.
then it's going to have this type of a cost. And those costs include stuff like downtime. How long can you afford
Mhm.
to be down? Can you afford to be down 44 days
Mhm.
like Erie County Medical was? I imagine that the answer to that is no for all of us.
Oh, yeah,
Most of
definitely.
us couldn't afford to be down for a day, let alone anything else. And so we want an instantaneous response. But okay, how long can you afford to be down? Can I afford to be down this long? And at what point in time does the breakover cost
Mhm.
kick in? And for most of us, it's minutes,
Correct.
not hours or days. Then qualitative then takes, this is what we believe is the solution, and this is the cost savings that can be associated with this, or the cost of not doing it
Mhm.
associated with it. And then you blend those together and you've got
That's
your
why you have that
hybrid
hybrid approach. So you can go to management and tell them, hey, yeah, we really need this. And we keep on touching on the point of cost. But there's also more beyond that.
Yes.
It's to your legal responsibility.
Yes.
To your customers, to your clients, and
Yes.
also the reputation of your organization.
Such a big deal.
That's, for me, that's big.
It's such
You
a
know.
deal. And again, I used Yahoo earlier, but I mean, really, Yahoo. Look what happened to Yahoo. Because they simply chose to make the wrong response.
Correct.
And they just got fined again. I saw another fine that they came out today for sitting on the information for a year. It's not a one-time thing. It just keeps happening over
Correct.
and over and over and over and over. Is it right? Is it right that the victims wind up with all the fines on it? No. But it is what it is.
Yes.
And so we have to have a right response to all of these things that we're doing. So with that, strategies, man. I mean, it's not good enough. We can sit here and talk about this all day long, and we really can
Yes.
sit and talk about this all day long. But what are some strategies that we can put in place
Mhm.
to help our customers, to help workflow, and to help their teams to be able to respond properly to an incident when it happens?
Yes. Basically, your strategies, it's not all risks are a negative risk. There
Sure.
are some that's also going to be a positive risk. Just like what you can do is you can share it. You can also exploit it, meaning you can create and build an app for it, get more money and more for your business, and you can also enhance it. But we're going to focus more on the negative risk here. We have 3 strategies here, which is to avoid, meaning if we need to have a server, do we need to have it in-house or can we put it on the cloud?
Sure.
you know, so we're taking away that risk, we're avoiding it. So basically that's what it is. Or transferring that risk. Good example of that one is getting your insurance policies.
Sure.
So
Cyber insurance.
you put that risk to a different vendor,
Right.
not to yourselves. And then, of course, the last one is you need to contain or mitigate that risk when it happens.
Sure.
So those are the three strategies that you guys needs to kind of, we'll see in the future.
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, again, going back to what, you know, my kind of key thought around this entire thing was, you know, without risks, you have a feeling of that we're in
Complacency,
vulnerability.
yeah.
And really, if there is no risk, you really are invulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're invulnerable, you start to become complacent.
Correct.
And that complacency in itself is
It's already
a risk.
Yes.
So, you know, there is no such thing as no risk, and actually risks are what keep us on our toes.
Mhm.
Because if we're not constantly looking for what is the next thing that's going to be protecting us, then we're constantly moving into a position of, I can take it easy, I can breathe. And
Correct.
the reality is that you're only one email and one click
One
away.
click away. That's true.
From you ready for this? Closure. It's not just that, oh my goodness, we got another infection, we got this or that, but 60% of businesses that were hit with a ransomware or a type of an encryption
Mhm.
virus did not survive 6 months after.
Absolutely right. Yep.
You simply cannot afford to not embrace this as an absolute necessity. There are none of us in probably on this room that don't have one of these today.
Yes.
We all have a phone. We all have a cell phone. And it's one of those things that we're just like, well, what do you mean you don't have a cell phone? Have you met anybody that doesn't have a cell phone that's under the age of 12?
That's true.
At this point in time. And even most of them now have a cell phone.
They have it too, yes.
You know, it's something that you just have to do. You have to take a posture of constantly being in readiness
Correct.
for that to happen at all
Correct.
times.
And I think that's
So-
the main reason why we're discussing this.
So, man, you know, this all sounds really expensive, Romeo. You know, I mean, I know, I mean, for the amount of time and all the things that go into this thing, it's got to be just an incredible high cost, right?
No. That's the good news there. It's no. Again, it's a misconception of a lot of people saying that, okay, if I do my risk assessment, my risk analysis, all my DR plans and things like that, how's it going to cost me? How much? Actually, it's not. It's not that much. If we have that tool nowadays that we can use and leverage from, so that cost of labor-intensive process can be taken away, because that's the most expensive part of it.
Sure.
So yeah.
And you don't have to fly in the guys in the black suits and the
Correct.
and the thing, you know, and have a team of people all going around and poking through all of your files and doing all those kinds of things like that.
We can do a remote risk assessment. We can walk you through it. We can hold your hand step by step and guide you through the whole process.
Or anything in between.
Correct.
Whatever that company
Yes.
needs.
Yes.
To be able to
Absolutely.
help
Yes.
them with their processes, help them with their incident response plan, writing
Correct.
disaster recovery.
That's disaster recovery, and that's a good thing. Everything is included into our Cyber Compass utility. It's just amazing. It's a one-stop shop.
There's a couple of things that I hear from our customers all the time related with this. They call us up and they say, hey, listen, we need you to give us your disaster recovery plan.
Okay.
Why do you need my disaster recovery plan? Well, we need a disaster recovery plan. Our insurance people and our
Uh-huh.
risk assessment people came in and said, we need a disaster recovery
Where
plan.
is it?
And we
Yeah.
need you to give us your disaster recovery plan. And the hardest thing for me sometimes to explain to people is that my disaster recovery plan is my disaster recovery plan.
Absolutely.
It's not yours.
Correct.
I am part of your disaster recovery plan, certainly. And I am certainly part of your incident response plan. But here's the thing that shocks people when I say this. I'm not even the most important part of your incident response plan as your IT provider.
Mhm.
I am the least important part of your incident response plan as your IT provider. And as a matter of fact, I might be the last person that finds out about an incident, because your local team where you are may find out about it and immediately enacted an incident response plan before they ever picked up the phone and called me
Correct.
and said, Greg, I need your help. We have an incident and we need to go ahead and get this thing. Because the first thing I'm going to ask them is, have you unplugged it?
That's right.
They needed to have already done that. It's part of their plan to execute those things. And then I'm part
Mhm.
of the organizational structure that they call to let me know that things need to happen. Disaster recovery, backup recovery,
Right.
all of these different things that you do. And trust me, listen, y'all, a backup plan is not a disaster recovery plan.
It's
It might be.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not the same. It's not the same as redundancy. It's
Mhm.
not the same as the 3-2-1 method. It's
Correct.
not the same of having local copies and offsite copies and redundant copies. If you go down for a day in your organization, how much does that cost you?
Yes.
Well, if I'm waiting, for a day or 2 days to download your backup copies and rebuild your
Mhm.
server from the ground up, from bare bones to bare metal, and rebuild your thing and put it back in place, even if it's a VM, even if I have a copy of it,
Correct.
there's time that we're going to be
Yes,
down.
correct.
Versus a disaster recovery plan, a true disaster recovery plan that may include high availability,
Mhm.
redundant locations,
Redundancy,
so
correct.
that if you have an incident hit your primary production EHR, that I can immediately take that offline and flip you to a local, to an offsite collocation where there's already a server stood up and spun up that is the same thing as what you've got going on here that are synchronized.
Correct.
Flip you immediately over and you lose no time. That time is part of the costs
Mhm.
that we're talking about in this. So you have to look at an organization and you have to make an assessment of what is my time worth. That's part of the security assessment. That's part of what we're talking about doing.
Correct.
And so with all of that, that's the reason why you bring in a security team, why you bring in an IT consulting team, even if we aren't your actual primary IT people.
Yes.
Because we just have a different set of eyes and look at it from a different angle
Perspective. Correct.
than your IT team. And we can come in and we can help your IT team to be able to see some things that they may not be able to see immediately.
Absolutely.
And then make recommendations to you to say, hey, listen, this is just what we recommend that you do. You make these changes and you're gonna have an effective thing. And then you can move into your risk management and your ongoing paths as you go down the road. All kinds of things that could be done. I'm sure that there's probably a lot of questions that people have.
Probably.
We are coming up against the end of our actual meeting and the time that we have, but Romeo, I just want to thank you for coming today.
It's my pleasure, man. It's awesome.
We enjoy the partnership that we have with you as part of Visualution services that we offer. Romeo is part of our product stack that we offer as a partner with us. In his company, MyMed will come alongside of us, and we
Correct.
can come in together.
Yes.
Just part of your ongoing agreements that you have with us, that you can come in and you can add Romeo's service as part of your existing monthly agreements that you have with us on an ongoing service, and we can just add him as an add-on piece of the platform to go along with us, so that it's kind of one-stop shopping.
One-stop shop.
And
That's
then
right.
we work together hand in hand to make sure that as he identifies things that are security potential opportunities,
Correct.
that he'll work with our team and our IT team to be able to mitigate those and help you to be able to offset those risks, so that you've got the best strategy in place that you possibly can.
Absolutely.
So again, I appreciate what you guys do for us. I appreciate your partnership with us and what we're going to be able to do for our customers.
Likewise.
And the information, great information today. So thank you so
Thank
much
you. Appreciate
for your
it.
time
Thank you
today.
for having me.
Guys, we appreciate your time. If you have any questions at all about this, you can feel free to drop them in the comments if you're on the Facebook Live feed, and we will respond back to those here as soon as I get off. We'll send you some information out that you need to do. If you wanted to contact Romeo or have any conversations with him in advance, we'll have his contact information will be available
Yes.
in our feeds, and will be available on LinkedIn and the YouTube channel and all those things that will be available after this. And again, feel free to share this information with your colleagues, with other people that you might think that may receive some value out of this. There's good information here. Regardless of whether you come to me or Romeo, there's good information here. Just get yourself protected. We don't want you to be the next headline in
Correct.
healthcare. I don't want to be talking about your clinic on my next webinar that we get, so don't be Erie County. All right, thanks guys. We appreciate
Thank you, guys.
y'all. Have a great
Appreciate
day.
your time.